It's the day of Mercury, April 8th, 2026, and you're listening to Seleni's Gateway Weekly Forecast. I'm your host, Evan Malone, and today I'm excited to be joined by my friend Eliza, and we're going to be discussing and contextualizing the astrology from today, April 8th, through April 14th. Welcome to the show, Eliza.
Hello.
Our goal today is to do a walkthrough of the week and discuss how the astrology could feel and different things we can expect from it. But before we get into it, though, we want to just be clear about what our goals are. While amidst the frenzy of the greater struggles that are going on in the world, most of us are still experiencing and attempting to live our regular lives as best we can. So while we are doing mundane astrology here this week, we're not trying to focus on global astrology. And what I mean by that is we are not attempting to skirt past the devastation and chaos that's going out on in the world. We're more trying to present the astrology from a week to week basis in a more personal, felt, and experienced way. And so to start off with, Eliza and I both pulled tarot cards as a way to give the tarot a opportunity to give us a through line or energy for the week and a little bit of guidance. What card did you happen to pull today, Eliza?
Oh, I pulled the Hermit. What
Awesome.
card did you pull?
I pulled the Ten of Wands, and I really feel like the Ten of Wands really contextualizes a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about this week. Some of the key words for the Ten of Wands are overwhelm, exhaustion, burden, heavy load, responsibility, limitations, and sacrifice. And it's a fire card, and we have a lot of fire energy coming into April. So I felt like it was a good representation of some of the things that we're going to be having to process and deal with.
Yeah, kind of that last final push, trying to kind of get something meaningful done or to sort of like achieve something. And it can be really tiring and difficult, and it can kind of feel like you're burnt out, but you're not doing it for no reason. You're doing it for some sort of like meaningful, significant reason. And maybe that's why the hermit is also coming in because it's about going inwards and quieting the mind and finding that inner peace and finding the silence within so that you can actually hear your own inner voice and your own inner wisdom and focusing the mind in that way, kind of guarding the gates of your mind so that it's not just an onslaught of overwhelming stimuli. And you are protecting your peace in order to sort of like touch in with that inner wisdom and your inner voice and your inner knowing so that you can kind of like hone in on that mission, whatever it is you're trying to sort of like accomplish and carry to the end with the Ten of Wands there.
Yeah, I think that's great how those cards are kind of working in that way together. I do think that the Hermit is probably going to help us find that inner wisdom that we need to problem solve issues that may come up through this week, but also through the month of April as a whole. Um, and then, so now I'm just going to read through some of the major aspects that are going to be happening this week, and then we'll go through as more of like a day to day contextualization so that you can attune yourself to the different things that are going to take place from more of a day to day thing. But I want to just list off the some of the more major themes or aspects that are going to be happening uh, first. And so we start off today. We have Mars Uranus sextile that we're definitely feeling in the world. Thursday the 9th, we finally get Mercury moving out of its shadow, and Mars moves into Aries. Thursday is just overall a very big day and kind of sets the tone for the whole week because Mars moving into Aries sets up for later on in the week when Neptune uh, when it conjoins both Neptune and Saturn. Mercury leaving shadow sets it up for moving into Aries at the end of what we're forecasting for. And then also on this day, Venus and Jupiter move within a 5-degree orb of their sextile that they're going to be completing later in the week. So this Thursday energy is going to be really important to pay attention to. Then on Friday and Saturday, we're going to be mostly attached to what the moon is going to be accomplishing through that time. And then Sunday is when the Mars Neptune conjunction perfects, as well as early Monday morning is when the moon Jupiter sextile takes place. And those are very close to each other. And then Tuesday is when Mercury finally moves into Aries and leaves Pisces for its I think it's been in there for 2 months. I think it went in around like February 6th or something like that. So it's just been a really long Mercury in Pisces period.
Yeah, 87 years.
87 years specifically. uh so Eliza, do you want to take us through starting with today's astrology?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of the day here now on Wednesday, but this morning, early in the morning, around 4:51 a.m., and these times that I'll be saying are in Central Time, we had a moon square to Mars. Moon at the end of Sagittarius was squaring Mars at the end of Pisces. And a few hours later, at 7:04 a.m., the moon moved from Sagittarius into Capricorn. In Capricorn, the moon finds itself in its exile, but it is also in an earth sign where it has triplicity, dignity, and wants to be productive and practical and grounded as much as possible. But it can be maybe a little bit hard on us at times in the way that it feels. It can be a little drying, it can be a little bit critical, it can be um, a little bit depressing, if you will, but it's mostly because it's really trying to get stuff done and it's just a really good time to drink a little bit of extra water and to like hydrate and moisturize. And that goes for both physically and metaphysically, I guess. But so the moon moves into Capricorn at around 7 a.m. And then Mars sextile to Uranus happened already today at 11:11, which is cute, I guess. 11:11. I don't know if cute is the right word, but Moon then will square Neptune at 12:05, which we are probably in already past that. Yeah, Moon square Neptune at 12:05. And then later this evening, the moon will finally get to Saturn at 8:16 p.m. And it is interesting because Saturn rules this moon, and we are in the beginning of a new Saturn cycle since we just had the Saturn Cazimi not too long ago. And at the same time, the moon is waning and beginning to start its last quarter phase. And so it's sort of like a clearing out of whatever is still here so that we can start this new cycle, this new Saturn cycle that is occurring in Aries.
Yeah, I think the what you said about the moon being in Capricorn is very apparent in a lot of the times when I experience it. I'd find myself like caring more about the details of like what I'm trying to accomplish and like forgetting to eat, forgetting to drink water, forgetting to like really like nurture myself. And I think that it's really important to remember to do that, especially with the moons also getting projecting into that square between Neptune and Saturn. Like Neptune can make us a little fuzzy and not being as acutely aware, and then Saturn can cause us to be like overly harsh. Uh, and like you said, like we were talking about this earlier, and this last quarter of the moon is just going to be really is the first lunation cycle that the moon has been a part of in Aries so far. And so I think that you're right that like this isn't just like tying up a normal last quarter of the moon. This is also tying up some of the issues that we may have experienced through the entirety of the Saturn in Pisces series. And I think that we're feeling that for sure.
And yeah, I think the moon is going to be tuned into the things that we really need to get done to let go of the old and start something new. And it can just kind of be mean to us. I think we can be mean to ourselves about that. And maybe that is me as a Capricorn rising, but I think we can be a little bit hard on ourselves whenever we are really taking inventory of all the different things that are no longer sustainable or that we don't really align with or that we don't appreciate. And especially with the aspects to Aries, it's kind of like this desire for it to like all be fixed and changed immediately and for everything to just get done right away. But things take time and you kind of have to be patient with yourself and have a little grace with yourself. And it's good to take note of of the things that we want to change or improve, but it doesn't help if you are just kind of stuck in a self-deprecating loop about it, because the more and more you are self-deprecating, the more and more you become dysregulated, and you can't get things done when you're dysregulated, it turns out. So don't try to self-deprecate yourself into self-improvement or self-compassion, because turns out it doesn't really work very well, especially not when there's Aries coming up against anything in Capricorn, because Aries needs to feel good about itself, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Aries does like to do better with like a more lighthearted, like inspired like direction. And our Aries friends are going to be dealing with the heaviness that Capricornians experience on a day-to-day basis while having Saturn in their Aries sign for the next couple of years. That's what this lunation cycle is kind of like pointing us towards.
Yeah, it's not gonna, Saturn Aries doesn't really feel like Capricorn, but I definitely take your point there. Yeah, there's like a little bit of like um a challenging, like, what are you gonna do about it kind of energy that's coming into Aries.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
exactly.
like it wants to go really fast because Aries likes to move fast, and so sometimes needs to be reminded those kind of things, they don't happen quickly. They take time and they require patience and commitment and discipline, consistency.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Thursday. What do you say?
Yeah, sounds good. Thursday, April 9th. We have kind of a nice morning on Thursday. We wake up at 7:26 a.m. to a moon trine to Venus. So the trine is Jupiter's aspect. It's supportive and encouraging, meaning those planets really get to support each other and work together. And here we have the trine happening in Earth signs. So after the moon has kind of done some of this difficult stuff, taking inventory and accountability for what it wants to change and what it needs to improve after squaring Saturn, it now gets to come up to Venus with a nice trine and kind of support it, be sort of more supportive feeling and self-caring. Like Venus in Taurus is in her domicile, and so she's really strong and grounding and stabilizing there. And Venus, is the planet of love and care and harmony and what we like and don't like. And so a nice self-care routine on Thursday morning or something to help you feel kind of grounded, maybe something to connect with the earth would be really nice, being like in the garden or taking a walk outside or just doing any kind of like grounding, breathing exercises or spending a little bit of extra time on your, I don't know, skincare routine or your hair or take a bath or whatever. Do something nice for yourself. Have a nice breakfast, nurture yourself, nurture your stomach. It's just kind of a nice morning to do practical, down to earth things that help you take care of yourself and others and just like feel a little bit better after maybe some of that like stress and dehydration from the moon square to Saturn the night before. And then in the afternoon, later that day at 2:39 p.m., we finally have Mars leaving Pisces and entering Aries, which there's a lot to say about that, and we can come back to that. But then a few hours later at 4:10 p.m., the moon will oppose Jupiter. And so the fact that the moon moves from Venus at 7:26 a.m. and on to Jupiter at 4:10 p.m. in the afternoon means that that period of time, roughly between 7 and 4 that day, is a moon benefic enclosure, meaning that the moon gets to be moving between one nice energy to another nice energy. And so it's a nice window of time to do things that are important to you, to reach out to that person you've been meaning to reach out to for a while, call your mom, say hi to your mom, do something nice for yourself, or also just like anything that you like want to go well. So if there's any like important meetings or things that you need to schedule that day that you just kind of like it's important and you want it to go well, then do it during that window because whatever you embark upon and whatever you initiate during that little window of time is going to just be imbued with benefic influence, meaning like a sense of sort of positivity and things like working out for you, working out well for you, and working out in a way that's supportive. So, despite the fact that Mars does move into Aries in the middle of the day, um, there's also this kind of like nice, moon passage happening between the two benefics. And after the moon opposes Jupiter at 4:10 p.m., then the moon moves on to the sun, which is also not really bad for the moon. It's kind of nice. The moon from Capricorn squares the sun in Aries later that night at 11:51 p.m. And then officially we're moving into the moon's last quarter phase, like we had already mentioned. So on a daily level, like this is kind of a nice day for the moon to like get things done, but it is also really significant in a totally different way astrologically because this is where Mars gets to Aries, and we are in sort of like a unique point right now for Aries since we have had Neptune move into this sign where it hasn't been ever while any of us have been alive. So Mars moving into Aries is also Mars getting to its domicile where it is extra strong. And it's just going to be flavored quite a bit differently this time because Neptune is there and Saturn is shortly afterwards. But there's a lot to say about Mars moving into Aries on this day. Things could really like heat up. Things could get kind of spicy, like in the world, in world astrology and in the news. And passage of time of Mars through Aries is going to be an important time to try to keep inflammation levels in check, both literally and figuratively, and to channel the highly invigorating energy in a healthy way as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Um, it's such a big important day, like I had mentioned earlier when I was doing the brief walkthrough. Uh, and I love that you brought up like calling your mom because I often think of trines and sextiles between the moon and Venus as very like supportive conversations with parents or grandparents, like that type of like nurturing energy. And I love this benefic enclosure between Jupiter and Venus because like we mentioned, like the moon is in exile in Capricorn, so she's really getting that help that she was kind of like looking for when she moved in there yesterday. And there's also like this connecting between Venus and Jupiter, like it's good to think about that day and to think about that energy because it's going to give us a little bit of a model or a little bit of a feeling of that Venus Jupiter sextile that's going to perfect later on in the week. Um, because the moon is also going to reconnect them after they have perfected their sextile. So there's this beginning of this storyline, this beginning of this energy that you can kind of like tap into to use as almost like a filtration or like grounding to hold on to. And yeah, and the Mars moving into Aries, it's running into Neptune for the first time, and like Eliza said, like none of us have experienced this. And so we can use the past to kind of look at the future, but no, regardless of where a planet has moved before, like none of the other cycles are exactly the same. So we can use the history as much as we can to project forward, but I just really am trying to suggest to people, my friends and the people that I talk to just be very observant and to be very quiet in the mind and aware of what's transpiring because it's going to be new for all of us. So when Mars moves into Aries for the first time with Neptune and Saturn being in there, this is the beginning of an energy flow that we're going to see repeated. And I think it's just really important to pay attention to how those storylines start to surface, uh, especially since the conjunction to Neptune happens later in the week. I feel like this is where that's going to start to like bubble up.
Yeah, for sure. Just make sure you don't get carried away with any like energy boosts that you get that day because you are going to end up crashing into Neptune and Saturn, and the vibe is going to be feeling a little bit different in a few days. So just keep that in mind. So then we get to Friday, April 10th, and we have early in the morning a moon sextile to Mercury at 6:44 a.m., which is a nice sort of energizing aspect to wake up to in the morning to help kind of get your day started. Then we have a moon trine to Uranus in the evening at 5:23 p.m. Then the moon will leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius at 6:55 p.m. And we'll get a moon sextile to this Mars, which has newly entered Aries at 8:50 p.m. And then we get the moon sextile to Neptune, also newly in Aries at 11:58 p.m.
Yeah, that sextile to Mercury really completes a nice run for the moon there in a row. It's like yesterday on Thursday, it's going from Venus to Jupiter to the Sun, and then it moves it to Mercury. That's just a nice like set of runs for the moon to run into before hitting a more challenging Uranus and then Mars and then Neptune. And I think one of the things that we wanted to point out too about the moon trine to Uranus is this is really starting a another completion cycle because the Uranus is sitting at the end of Taurus, and we're going to be talking about this for the next 2 weeks. It's going to be about 2 weeks from now, with like just a couple of days, when Uranus moves out of Taurus for the last time after it's been there for 14 years and since 2017.
Not 14.
2017.
Oh, like that's not 14 years.
Oh, 2018.
Isn't it more like 8
2018.
years? Isn't a Uranus cycle like 8 years?
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Why did you
Seven.
say
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
14? I don't know what you're thinking about 14, but maybe that's something else that you're thinking about right now that's relevant. But yeah,
We'll
it's
let
the
this
last
part
time that the
out.
moon will trine that's the last time that the moon will trine Taurus from Capricorn. Um, and it's interesting that it's like this waning moon that is kind of like closing out a cycle. So the moon here that is waning and closing out this cycle ends up picking up a lot of these planets that are also shifting. Like it we'll get to Pisces in a little bit here, but there's a lot of closing out that's happening, and the moon is like helping us kind of do this, like flushing out and sort of like finding integration about things, about these like longer cycles. So it's kind of helpful. It's kind of like a helpful thing for the moon to do for us. But yeah, that first hit that the moon gets to Mars is kind of is kind of interesting. The moon sextile to Mars from Aquarius to Aries. You'll really start to kind of feel that fiery, invigorating boost of energy there. So just if you're feeling like the flames are being fanned, that's good and all. Just make sure that you're not fanning the flames too hard and that you don't burn yourself out. Pace yourself, if you will. So
Yeah.
then we get to Saturday, April 11th. And the moon early that morning at 5:22 a.m. will conjoin Pluto, which can be kind of like a little bit of a somber, heavy energy, but it can be transformative as well. And perhaps if you're sleeping during this time, then your unconscious will be kind of like clearing things out for you. So if you have any like weird dreams this night, just know it's probably actually a positive thing because your unconscious is like making, or your subconscious is making space for, it's making space, clearing up space for you to have more energy. It's sort of like taking out the trash. If you have any kind of like bad dreams like that on this night, it's sort of like taking out the trash so you can sort of transform and clear things out. And then that morning on Saturn's day, we get a nice little sextile from the moon to Saturn at 8:15 a.m. So it's sort of like a somber, quiet morning that would be nice for some meditation time or a nice walk to help clear your mind. I think Devin, you had mentioned it would be a nice morning for something like some hot yoga. Just make sure that you're not overdoing it. It's not too hot and you are hydrating very well.
Yeah, yeah. I brought up the hot yoga because Saturn is in a fire sign, so it is like transmuting, like transmitting that like fiery energy of Aries, and I like to tell people that sometimes it's best to find a way to like choose and initiate those actions instead of receive them. So like hot yoga tends can tend to be one of those things where you're like doing something physical and structured and organized in a hot environment. So you're kind of like creating the image of Saturn and Aries instead of like it coming at you unexpectedly. And however, because Mars is in Aries, like Eliza said, it you're gonna want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and not pushing yourself too hard. I was actually at a friend's house last night and they had a temporary sauna set up, and I actually took it upon myself to try to make sure that people weren't overexerting themselves in the sauna, like not being policey about it, but just like nurturing and caring, like, hey, are you okay? Like you've been in here for a while, sort of a thing. And that's the same type of care you want to give yourself while this Mars, Saturn, and Neptune thing in Aries is taking place. It's just that extra awareness around heat, extra awareness around self care and structure, and not overdoing it.
For sure. And I think it's a really good time to get some really deep breaths in. So anything that helps you get more oxygen to the brain, I think it could be really like a regulating practice to have on Saturday as you're starting your day. I think it will help with any sort of like stress that may come up that day. And just help you feel a little bit more grounded. So then we really kind of have not much more going on in terms of moon transits, at least for the rest of Saturday. So it's really sort of like the moon is really sort of still doing this thing with Saturn, but now from Aquarius instead of Capricorn. So it's a sextile instead of a square, and so there's sort of this like a little bit more harmonious ability to for those two planets to work together. So maybe, leaning into that sort of more somber, quiet time, meditative time would be good for Saturday. And then the moon is not actually aspecting anything again until technically Sunday, but late Saturday night at 12:43 a.m. The moon now gets to Venus in Taurus again, except this time from a square across the fixed signs, Moon in Aquarius, square Venus in Taurus at 12:43 a.m. And this is a really nice aspect if you are being social on Saturday night, if you're out and about. It's kind of nice for like a little bit of like pleasure and indulgence and fun. Um, Again, kind of, being careful you're not overdoing it because, again, we have a waning moon here ruled by this fallen Saturn, and it could be really easy to kind of like be a little too hard on your body or neglect your body. So if you're indulging and you're having some fun, that is on the menu, I think, for right now. But just keeping it in mind that you will you will be feeling Saturn one way or another. So it's like it's up to you how much of a Saturn tax you want to pay. So just maybe like don't go like too incredibly hard on the indulgence, but definitely like have a little bit of fun and indulge if you can on Saturday night if you're up and you're out and about. And then at 2:47 later that afternoon on Sunday, the moon will sextile the sun. And that's again, we like moon sun contacts, generally speaking. It's just like energizing and supportive. And the passage between Venus and the sun for the moon is also a nice sequence for the moon. And yeah, I think on Sunday it's mainly those two aspects. Really early in the morning, moon squaring Venus, and then in the afternoon, moon sextile sun. So it's a good day to be social. It's a good day to be with friends and family. It's a good day to kind of get out in the sunshine, take a walk, move your body, have like sort of like a relaxing morning with a little bit more of an invigorating afternoon, if you will.
Yeah, if you do choose to indulge on Saturday night, which yeah, it looks like it would be fun for sure. Um, maybe Sunday morning is when you go out for brunch afterwards, or maybe allow yourself to sleep in a little bit. I especially like that moon from Venus to sun because the sun's exalted still right now, so it's really got this uh like sovereign energy. You can feel a sense of like really feeling yourself, feeling in tune to yourself, and celebrating with friends, like moving that Venus energy in with the sun. Like, yeah, I think you could you could test out a new brunch restaurant or something like that on Sunday with some friends if you wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. And then we get to Monday, April 13th. And right off the bat at 12:30 a.m., we have the Mars conjunction to Neptune, which perfects at that time in Aries. At 2:43 or 2:43 a.m., we have Moon square to Uranus. Again, these moon transits to Uranus are just a little bit extra significant right now since this is Uranus's last passage, last few moments through Taurus after, this 8-year cycle that we've been in since 2018. So we get a moon square to Uranus at 2:42 a.m. And then we also have another major aspect perfecting in the middle of the night at 3:20 a.m., which is that we have the very nice Venus in Taurus sextile to an exalted Jupiter in Cancer. Beautiful, beautiful aspect here with both the benefics who are both in really good shape and have a lot of essential dignity going on for them. They are generally unafflicted by all of the malefic stuff going on in Aries, especially Venus, who's in Taurus. She is protected from the malefics where she is right now. And they are just working together and helping us to pleasure max and to feel good and to really nurture whatever it is that we are wanting to create and help come into fruition. It's also very social and good for relationships, as well as good for your relationship with yourself and your own self-care. It does happen, really early in the morning at 3:20 a.m. But as you said already, this is going to be an orb that opens up a few days before we get to the perfection here, and you'll be feeling this transit kind of all week, with it just being the most potent at this point, really early Monday morning. And then shortly afterwards, the moon from Aquarius will move into Pisces at 3:55 a.m. And then we move into Tuesday. So, is there anything you'd like to say about the Monday transits here?
Well, yeah, I think it's time for us to really spend a little bit more time on the Mars Neptune conjunction and also the and how that's like contrast slash like juxtapose the Venus Jupiter sextile, because this Mars Neptune conjunction, like I think one of the things we talked about yesterday was like I had this uh metaphor of like you're trying to charge uphill with Mars entering Aries like a truck carrying a heavy load behind it. And if you try too hard, you could like burn out your engine and like just lose your ability to go at all totally. And this is going to be one of the heights of that kind of like metaphor climax. You really want to approach this Mars Neptune conjunction with caution and awareness, because the Neptune part can put up a facade that like things are just fine, things are okay, and you're not able to be as aware of maybe how hard you're pushing yourself. Whereas like simultaneously this pleasure maxing uh transit is going to be something that you can like rely on to help give yourself a sense of like reprieve from the intensity that's building in the Aries sign. And you see that like square, that whole sign square from Jupiter, and then the sextile to Venus, like Jupiter is kind of acting as like a fulcrum between these two aspects. So they have a unifying connection through Jupiter, through our philosophy, through our beliefs, through the way that we like to hold ideas and things of that nature. But Venus is really in the background, kind of like supporting Jupiter in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we are going to have to live through the Mars Neptune conjunction before we can really know exactly how to talk about it, because again, none of us have been alive for Neptune and Aries. And the last time Neptune was in Aries, it was a very different world. It was just a world that is unlike the world we're living in now. So we can pull some examples as best as we can from history. We still are entering into unprecedented territory here. And so, um, we are sort of just going to have to live through it before we figure out exactly how it feels and how it affects us. That's my opinion, anyway. Um, So, yeah, Tuesday, April 14th, we have another nice moon day. It is not moon day, it is Tuesday, Mars Day, but the moon is doing nice things because it is trining Jupiter, an exalted Jupiter, at 10:22 a.m. And they have the mutual reception here with moon in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer. So that happens in the morning at 10:22, and then we get the Mercury sextile to Uranus at 12:10 p.m. and we get a moon sextile to Venus at 1:10 p.m. So again, what we're seeing here is another uh, moon benefic enclosure. And so between 10:22 a.m. and 1:10 p.m. that afternoon, we have this little window of time where the moon is moving from one benefic to the next, and there is a sort of positive blessing quality that the moon is being imbued with. However, it is this waning moon that is getting very, very small and losing its light rapidly at this point. So, while I wouldn't say it's great for starting brand new things, I think that it is still a really nice time to be finishing certain things up that you want to go well. Just it's just a sort of a nice time to keep in mind every time the moon moves through both benefics like that when she's in between both of them. And then later that night, we finally have Mercury leaving Pisces and moving into Aries at 10:23 p.m. And I'm not sure if we mentioned that Thursday, April 9th, is when Mercury leaves its shadow phase finally at 22 degrees Pisces. So, as we already discussed, Mercury has been in Pisces for a very long time, where it kind of has a hard time there. And we're finally getting to new territory for Mercury starting on Thursday. And so, when we get to Tuesday here and we have this Mercury sextile to Uranus, you know, those are two transits that are really closing out because Mercury is finally leaving Pisces and Uranus after 8 years is finally leaving Taurus. And so there could be some insights, some sort of like revelatory insights that come to us that day that are sort of like little like lightning bolts of downloads of information about things, little aha moments, if you will, that could be invigorating and helpful, maybe,
Or
hopefully.
maybe or maybe also like we could use that energy to be reflective and try to have a look backwards at what Uranus in Taurus in your chart has actually been doing the whole time. From a personal experience, when Uranus moved into Taurus is when I officially became a full-time butcher instead of just a regular like line cook. And that was a big part of the whole process of Uranus moving through Taurus was me learning that art, learning that craft, and it just touches a lot of Mars and Saturn things in my chart from that angle. Not and it's it I think it's a good time to like take stock of that, take stock of what Uranus has meant, what Uranus has been doing, and I think Mercury can help you sort through the emotional content in Pisces that to help contextualize that period of time in your life. I mean, the world's changed a lot since Uranus moved into Taurus. And I think that how we've come on the other side of it can help give us some insights into how to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. Good for reflection. I think that's what I meant about like integration and having like little innovative downloads and insights. Downloads and insights about everything that has happened this whole time that Uranus has been in Taurus and what you've learned from that in your Taurus sector of your chart. And yeah, hopefully Mercury helps us sort of like wrap that up and have some helpful, meaningful, introspective self-reflection.
Yeah, and the other thing I like about this Mercury at the end of Pisces too is that it has a contra-intuition relationship with all the things that are going on in the beginning of Aries. And I think that it can help provide us with some innovative tools because like Mercury in Pisces is good for like poets and thinking outside of the box, and I really like that energy for kind of aiding this Mars, Neptune, and Saturn thing that's taking place. And then when Mercury does move into Aries, like we're going to have more of like a direct access to the problem solving that Mercury can help us with.
Maybe that's one way to look at it. Yeah, Mercury moving into Aries that night, at 10:23 p.m. is gonna start. It's gonna start a whole new vibe because Mercury will now be with this huge pileup of planets in Aries, and it's finally shifting out of this like sort of like watery, spiritual, emotional realm of Pisces, where it does struggle to discern fact from fiction, perhaps. It does struggle to be objective. It does struggle to communicate its messages most concisely and clearly, which is, these are the functions of Mercury. But it also is very imaginative and creative and emotional. And so things that were coming to pass while Saturn was in Pisces for a very long time, these last 2.5 years, they've all been, you know, Mercury has followed that up in Pisces recently, these last, what'd you say, 6 weeks, and has been sort of pinging all of these places that Saturn has been laboriously trudging through very slowly and sort of leaving a sense of like heaviness and weightedness and somber sadness and grief and depression and all of this. And so Mercury moving through has been a bit of a helpful thing, even if there's been a lot of like emotionalism and confusion and maybe fatigue. That's all playing a role that is really important because it's about processing the grief that has probably come to pass while Saturn has been in Pisces for all of us. It's a very emotional place. And so Mercury moving through there is sort of like doing the last bit of like inventory and tidying up work, as Saturn has now left the Pisces house of our chart. And it's just probably brought a lot of things to mind, um, for us to think about in this like emotional area of our life. And in some ways, Mercury has probably helped us express that and channel that into some sort of like writing or thoughts or communication or creativity and art, or like crying, helping us cry, helping us sort of like really feel all of those thoughts that are just always happening, but again, kind of get trapped in the mind and don't really get out through like a felt sense of like an embodied expression through the emotions or the somatic experience. And I think, Mercury maybe needed to spend all of this time, all of this extra time in this place to help us tie up these loose ends and sort of like integrate all of this like maybe grief and heaviness that has come through this whole time that Saturn's been in Pisces. I don't know. I hope that made sense the way that I phrased that.
Yeah, no, I think it totally makes sense,
If you've been
because
crying a lot, it's probably been exhausting and maybe not your favorite thing, but it's probably also been really important and good to get those feelings out.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because Saturn has a drying effect when it moves through signs, and while that may cause Aries to feel more inflamed because of the added dryness, when it's going through Pisces, it definitely has made it a little bit harder for me personally to engage with the tearing aspect of emotions. But since it's been in Aries, since Saturn's moved into Aries, I personally have been able to drop tears more often, which isn't common for me. And I've been actually really appreciative of it. And
Yeah, I would attribute that to Mercury and Pisces, but we'll see because I don't think you're going to be crying when Mercury gets to Aries. But maybe you will. Maybe you'll be crying more. I don't know. We'll see.
well, no, I just meant that like because Saturn's not there anymore. Like Mercury's the planet of our mind and communication and things of that nature. And now that Saturn's not there anymore, like it's like the dam's been like released a little bit more. Like the emotions have
Mm,
been able to flow more because of Saturn not blocking it so
I don't,
much.
yeah, I guess I was doing a lot of crying with Saturn in Pisces. So I had no problem with that. Anytime there's anything in Pisces, I'm crying. And I want to take a nap, usually.
Okay. Uh Yeah, I like to point at the Eight of Cups, which is a reflection of Saturn in Pisces when I think about Saturn's time in Pisces. So for those of you experienced in the tarot, like reflect on what the Eight of Cups means to you and how life's been since 2023, because it's been a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge our feelings and our grief and really hold space for that so that we can move into a totally new framework here with all of these planets in Aries. It's like a huge extra emphasis on starting something new. And there may be such a rush to try to really pursue this new thing with like incredible vigor. But as we've said, just know that things probably won't move so as quickly and simply as like maybe you're feeling like you would like them to, because it's like I'm when we move from Pisces to Aries, it's kind of like, all right, I'm exhausted. I've spent a lot of time feeling my feelings and I'm really weighed down with all this emotion and I am just like I'm so ready to jump into the fire and just start something new and just like jump off the cliff like the fool and do something new. And that's really nice and invigorating, but this cliff, if we're jumping off of, you're probably gonna like jump into an alligator pit. And so, just maybe like don't fully jump off the cliff, or maybe like have a parachute or something, or maybe like slowly hike down the cliff instead of jumping off of it. Just sort of pace the energy that will come through because there's going to be a lot of fiery energy, and we don't want you to get totally burnt out.
Yeah, exactly. Like lean on that hermit card. Lean on that finding the inner light, finding the inner resolve, finding the moments of peace and quiet and grounding to be able to orient yourself to your internal wisdom, your internal light when you do step out into the world. And yeah, having a lot of stuff in fire creates a lot of smoke, creates a lot of obscurity, so you don't
Well,
you don't
especially
want to
with
go
Neptune
charging
and
in.
Saturn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think
like,
that if Neptune and Saturn weren't there, I'd be a little more like, yeah, go get it. Just
yeah, Mars,
go.
Mercury, and the Sun. Hell yeah.
But yeah, but with it being, Saturn's there. So whatever large expenditures of energy you are doing is going to come with a Saturn tax. And so you get to decide how much you want to pay the Saturn tax. How high is the toll? Um, the choice is yours.
The choice is yours. And the choice is always yours because it's a co-creative universe and we're going to try our best to make the best choices we can. And I think on that note, we're pretty much wrapping it up and we'll see y'all next week when we start back on Wednesday and give you the map as best we can describe.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm sure there's going to be a lot that happens between now and then, since there's these like huge shifts and accelerations forward in a slightly potentially violent direction. So everybody stay safe and take care of yourselves and don't get too carried away by the fire, because remember that fire can burn you.
That's right. Stay safe, stay hydrated. Have a great night.